Hey there, lovely people. Welcome back to another Writing Tip Tuesday. I'm Sammy, and I'm a writer who likes to help other writers become better writers. This week, I want to talk to you about side characters because they honestly can make or break a story for me. I feel like I've been really aware of them lately, and I've noticed them in a lot of different stories, and a lot of them are the thing that either makes the story bearable or draws me in so much into the story that I really do care about the main character because the side characters really do care about the main character. So why should you give your side characters depth besides to appease me as your reader? For one, they give depth to your main character. They give some outside perception on what matters to your main character. They also add detail to your world. They are another person that is interacting with the society that your story takes place in, the company that your story takes place in, the magic that your story has in it. They are somebody else to give another perspective on how this world works. So if it's different from the world that your reader lives in, or if it has different aspects of culture that your reader doesn't necessarily know personally, it gives them the opportunity to see how multiple different people interact with it and get a further understanding, create that empathy themselves. Side characters can also provide another perspective, something that maybe you've got a conflict going on and your main character has one understanding of it, but your side character is like, hey, maybe we should take other things into consideration. Or it provides some kind of conflict for your main character to navigate because maybe their friend doesn't believe that they are taking the right stance on a certain situation. And that perspective doesn't have to literally be another perspective in the story. It doesn't have to be like, oh, we're switching from the main character's perspective over to the side character's perspective. It's just showing the difference between one character and another's personal thoughts on something and how they interact with the same situation. They can provide comedic relief. They can be there to not feel things as heavily as the main character does. And that can be really, really important for some stories. Side characters can also provide another place for a reader to connect with the story. If that main character is not someone that the reader can empathize with, having a side character that does things differently, has a different outlook, and maybe a different background will provide another opportunity for a reader to be engaged and empathetic and relate to a character in the story. Side characters can also be a good way to create gut-wrenching character deaths without drastically impacting your story. I do have a video on how to write impactful character death, so if you want to check that out, it's linked in the cards and in the description. I have strong opinions on side characters and what makes a side character a bad side character for my experience of reading them. This may not be a universal thing, but I do think in a selfish kind of way that if these tropes and experiences of side characters are avoided, you'll have a better story in the long run. So what are the worst kinds of side characters? For one, the one-dimensional side character that doesn't have anything going on in their own personal life and only cares about one single thing, and that one single thing is usually whatever's going on with the main character. They have no outside depth besides what the purpose they serve to the main character is. And that is so boring because they don't bring any depth to themselves and they don't bring any additional depth to the main character. I feel like these are often the characters that are like, oh, you're gonna go on an adventure. Here's all of the information that you need. And it's just like a really great opportunity to get some exposition dump out in a way that makes it seem like it's dialogue, but it's actually just a side character that is there to be an info dump character. Not ideal. I'm not a fan. Personally. That's my opinion. Similarly, another side character that I do not like is the one that is just there for comedic relief. The one that doesn't really have anything going on besides, how can I make a joke in this situation? And that is different than the side character that is just there for the service of the main character, because this is a service to the storytelling in a way. It's, I don't know how to make this feel lighter, so I'm just gonna have this character here to crack jokes. It's upsetting because it's a character that doesn't really stand for anything. And having a character in a story that has no stakes in the story is just pointless. And if your point then becomes you need comedic relief, you need to figure out a better way to do that, or you need to figure out why this character feels the need to make jokes. What is underlying that? I need to dissolve the tension. Where is that coming from them as a person, and show that in some kind of way? Because if they aren't, if they're just there to make jokes, I want to punch them in the face. I can't, because they're fictional and they're written down on a piece of paper, and that's not ideal. It's not an ideal way to keep me engaged in your story. Another type of side character that I am not quite a fan of is the side character that is based entirely off of stereotypes and not on the concept of a real person. That can be any kind of stereotype. Old people, people of color, people who have a certain background in a certain job history, and people who do this type of thing, and just bearing entirely on stereotypes rather than digging into the concept of why is this person like this. And it can be really easy to fall into these traps because it's a side character. Why does it matter what their history is? They're not the main character. Their story does not matter. But I raise you, every single person in the world is the main character of their own story. You are the side character in someone else's story. I'm the side character in someone else's story. I'm cool with that. I'm a well-developed person. I got a lot of things going on, and I can be a support character in your story if you need me to. But I have other things. I'm a real person. And if you want your story to feel genuine and like something that can be connected to and something that draws a lot of empathy out of readers, having side characters that feel the way that real people do might help a little bit in giving that real world feeling to a fictional story. And that works in everything because that's a universal experience. Even people in positions where they can't really change anything about their lives, they don't have any way to take the reins on their own story or change the stakes of their story, they still care about things that they care about. And it's not the person who has the ability to take the reins on their stories what they care about exclusively. People are all fully fleshed out people in real life. So having fully fleshed out people in your story is going to be really, really great for making it feel whole and complete and fulfilling to read. So what makes a good side character? You treat them like they're real people that you need to know a lot of information about. Now, sure, not every single side character in your story you're gonna know every single bit about them. Not the way that you would know about your main character, and that's okay. You don't know every single detail about the people that are around you in real life every day, and that's fine. But you know that they have reasons for doing what they do. You know that they have different ways of being themselves around different people, and that they have different things that they prioritize. So the main thing you need to focus on for your side characters is that they are multifaceted. What does this character believe in? Why do they believe in it? Why does the side character interact with the main character? What drew them together? What pushes them apart? What makes that interaction the way that it is? Why is that there? What does the side character do when they are not with the main character? When the main character has no idea what's going on, what they're up to, just knows that they're meeting up later. What does the side character do with their time? Where is their pain coming from? What's their history? How do they hide their pain or their history? How do they keep that to themselves? How do they hide their insecurities from the main character? What are their insecurities? What makes them a whole person? So I've come up with a few steps that I think will lead to a beginning of a fully fleshed out side character. I don't think that these are all of the steps, but I think having these in your arsenal and like taking the time to do them, I only have 4, but I'm sure that there are like 35 that you can take. But these 4 I know will at least get you far enough to have a side character in a couple of scenes or whatever that feels like a real person, even though you don't know everything about them. My first step is to figure out what their purpose is to the main character, which should be easy because this is like the main thing that you're like, oh, I need a character so that the character will come in and tell the main character how this thing works or whatever it is. Finding the purpose for your characters is probably the easiest step, and it's like the subconscious step. Like you automatically are like, I need a person in the story that's gonna be the main character's best friend because the main character has this decision-making process issue and the best friend is gonna help them be smarter. That's what we're gonna do. So we'll go with that example. The best friend character that is there to help the main character come up with better decisions. So what's your next step? You're gonna identify why the side character has value for the main character. What draws the side character to the main character? Because we know what draws the main character to the side character. We know what their purpose is. What is the exchange from the main character to the side character? So let's continue on with that best friend example. Maybe the best friend who helps make better decisions has a bad home life and they don't really want to go home. So they stick around with this friend, the main character friend, because they've got a pretty decent home life and they're happy to have her stay by. So she hangs out and she gets the value of being in a good familial state without having to try and solve her own problems, which are maybe not her fault that they need to be solved. And she just spends all of her time with her best friend because she gets a very different quality of life in that space. So then you're gonna give the side character their own personal purpose. What does the side character do outside of the main character? What do they do that has nothing to do with the main character? What are they interested in? What are their hobbies? What do they care about? What are they passionate about? Let's say that the best friend in our example likes to design clothes and is really passionate about showing off personality and creativity in the clothes that she wears. So she does a lot of clothes designing and making. That's her hobby. That's what she's passionate about. That has nothing to do with the main character. The main character couldn't care less, but she's fine with it because that's her best friend and that's what her best friend cares about. So she cares that her best friend cares. The main character is not going to be making clothes just because the side character does, but that's the side character's thing. So your last step is to look at the side character's mindset. What do they believe? What do they feel? Are they an optimist? Are they a pessimist? Do they look towards facts and figures and numbers first, or do they go by emotional compassion first? And then you want to think about how that affects the main character. What's the difference between their thought processes? How do they remain similar? What are the things that tie them together through those thought processes? How does your main character's voice and actions change based on this person? Because everybody's got a slightly different version of themselves that they show off to other people. So what is the version of your main character that is interacting with the side character? How does that relate? And that little step is one of the things that I think will really help make your side characters feel very real. If your main character behaves exactly the same to every single person in every single possible situation, that's gonna make your main character seem not super fleshed out and also not give any depth to any of the side characters. It's a two-way street there. If they alter themselves to navigate social situations effectively, then they will continue on and feel like real people, and it'll feel like they're interacting with real people. Then you just rinse and repeat for all of your side characters, and maybe you go into a little bit more depth with side characters that are closer to the main character. Maybe you spend a little bit less time thinking about how the main character is going to interact with a character that they talk to once. Maybe that's not something that's super important to go fully in depth with, but you have it. You have the steps, you have the tools, you can get yourself through this process. If you were curious, I did base my example of a side character off of Harper from The Wizards of Waverly Place. If you caught that, please let me know. I feel like if your main character navigates different side characters differently and treats them all as individual people, that will automatically make your side characters feel more genuine. This was something I noticed in Night of the Raven, Dawn of the Dove, and in Daughter of the Pirate King, another story that had really strong side characters, and the side characters were the only thing that kept me going, was really good actually. If the side characters in that story were not as fleshed out as they were, I probably would have given up. The main character did pretty much relate to everybody kind of the same, whereas everybody else, all of the side characters, related to her differently, and that added to their fullness. And I'll be totally honest with you, thank you for listening. My video from Saturday was also filled with really well-rounded, fully developed side characters, and I did really enjoy it for that as well. That is all that I've got for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. It'll really help me out. If you don't want to miss any of my uploads, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. I'm here every Tuesday and Saturday with Writing Tip Tuesdays and Story Study Saturdays. Do you think side characters are as important as I do? because I feel like I've got a really heavy weight on the side characters and their importance, but I don't know if that's something that's a universal experience for other people who read. Even though I know that I care a lot about side characters when I'm reading, they aren't always my priority when I'm writing, and that's something I'm trying to navigate with this 4-step process for all of my side characters. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I will see you guys on Saturday.